We go there till we don't have a lot of money to buy food and drinks. So that place is helping us a lot.
Again, this documentary was released in 2019. At the end of 2019, the UK decided to elect Boris Johnson as the next Prime Minister of this country with an 80-seat majority in the House of Commons. Buongiorno freaks and geeks, welcome back to the channel. I am so happy you are here. Just do me one favour, come close, come closer. You matter and people care about you. So this week's been sort of fun. I wasn't going to continue with the coverage of the Tory leadership race because how much more important stuff could come out of that?
Jesus Christ.
At first, I was very shocked at this fascist behaviour, and then I thought better of it and decided to allocate my colourful shorts into days of the week because I will definitely be heading to this de-radicalisation camp. And then I started to weigh up the pros and cons of taking either playing cards or dominoes because I'm going to have a lot of friends in there. Not content with openly admitting he'll be a fascist, Rishi Sunak then decides to go and brag about the time he was literally trying to rob money from the poor.
I managed to start changing the funding formulas to make sure that areas like this are getting the funding that they deserve. Because we inherited a bunch of formulas from the Labour Party that shoved all the funding into deprived urban areas. Then that needed to be undone, needed to be undone, needed to be undone, needed to be undone. I started the work of undoing that. I made sure as Chancellor across government, not only do we increase local government funding,
total slag.
Don't you just miss the good old days where the Tories would whisper sweet nothings in your ear and then screw you, raw dog, no lube? And now it seems that they have dispensed with the niceties and just gone straight to dirty talk, just openly admitting how they're screwing us over before they actually do it. Oh my goodness. As if this leadership race couldn't steep any lower. Anywho, my reactions this week will be a sort of pick a mix. Generally, it'll just be anything that floated up and down my Twitter feed. So please enjoy where you can. So let's get into these selected best bits. But before we do, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me out. Please don't forget I also have a second channel, link in the description below. And I promise I will start uploading new content there very soon. Now, let's head over to the segment of an interview given by Jeremy Corbyn that has got every single Liberal in a 200-mile radius all fired up. Before I press play on the video, I guess I should give you some context. There's this guy called Brian, or Bri as I like to call him, on Twitter, who tweeted out the video with a very provocative caption. But I took the caption on this tweet by Bri with a grain of salt because he proudly boasted that he interviewed mass murderer and war criminal Tony Blair on Zoom and had the cheek to call a janitor a psychopath. Yikes. So the tweet reads as follows. Labour's former leader Jeremy Corbyn condemning Britain's crucial military aid. I love how we've inflated our sense of importance there. To Ukraine in an interview he granted to a pro-Russia, pro-Assad, pro-Hezbollah. Hold on, so like, how can you be pro-Assad but not pro-Syria, but you put in pro-Russian but not pro-Putin? That's just an interesting way to word your tweet. Anyway, is Iranian-linked propaganda outlet, well, media outlet should I say, and then he rounds it off with yikes. So a few things. I don't think it matters that it is any of those pros. I think Jeremy Corbyn can still go on. I seem to remember Jeremy Corbyn going on GB News, and I don't think he shares any of the political beliefs of the owners of GB News. So him going on this channel shouldn't really say anything about Jeremy Corbyn. It's almost like Bri is trying to influence your way of thinking before you even get to hear what Jeremy Corbyn has to say. So let's watch this video now and take it in in its fullest. Really understand the words Jeremy is trying to put across on this pro-Russian, pro-Assad, pro-Hezbollah, Iranian-linked propaganda media outlet. I'm surprised he didn't just throw in pro-Palestine, pro-Nelson Mandela, pro-Aborigines. Bri, you are a marvel. And the fun didn't stop there, because Bri decided to add some more unhinged tweets to the thread. I won't read through all of them because I don't have the time and you have a pause button. Please enjoy.
Isn't going to bring about a solution. It's only going to prolong and exaggerate this war. We might be in for years and years of a war in the Ukraine.
And if you're wondering why he said years and years, here's one example. The USA's military campaign backed by the UK in Afghanistan lasted 20 years.
But then the world woke up and suddenly realized that Russia and Ukraine are the world's biggest grain exporters, and something has to be done.
And this goes back to everyone's material interests and financial interests abroad. Every war is started or ended with the world superpowers' interests being affected.
So they came to an agreement, and I hope it holds, to export grain through Odessa and through the Bosphorus to the rest of the world. That is a good move. But at the same time, putting more and more arms into Ukraine isn't going to bring about it.
Okay, let me break this down. Putting more and more arms into Ukraine is not going to bring about. I'm trying to find out what is factually incorrect by what he said. If you keep pouring guns into the Ukraine, that means they're more likely to fight, which will prolong this war, equaling more death. Now, unless I press play and Jeremy Corbyn says, I want more death and more killing of Ukrainian people, I can understand why everyone's panties are in a bunch. But if he's just saying the war will be prolonged by flooding the streets with guns, is that incorrect? Just factually speaking now, like, unless I'm really missing something, please put a comment down below. But yeah, and if you're wondering what happens when a world superpower floods a smaller nation with guns, I would advise you go and watch Adam Curtis's documentary of 2015, The Bitter Lake. It will be illuminating for you.
What I find disappointing is that hardly any of the world's leaders use the word peace. They always use the language of more war and more bellicose war. Ukrainians are dying. Ukrainians have gone into exile, thousands and thousands. And Russian soldiers are dying, conscripted young Russian soldiers are dying. This war is disastrous for the people of Ukraine, for the people of Russia, and for the safety and security of the whole world.
I mean, how do you argue with that? We've got working class Russians going over and killing working class Ukrainians. That's just factually true. And you got these liberals on the internet absolutely just foaming at the mouth. How dare Jeremy Corbyn? I mean, he used to be the leader of the Labour Party. He's not even a Labour Party MP anymore. But this is still making you so angry.
Not a great plan.
I might suggest you've got too many good things happening in your life that this is making you absolutely foam at the... Wowzers.
And therefore, there has to be much more effort put into peace. I think it's good that Antonio Guterres eventually went to Moscow, but mainly to talk about Mariupol at that time. I think the UN ought to be centre stage in this. And if the UN cannot negotiate a ceasefire of some sort, then bring in somebody else who can.
The UN is an interesting organisation. Obviously, they're not supposed to have any financial interest anywhere around the world. But we saw what happened with the UN's power or lack thereof when the USA, again propped up by the UK, decided to invade Iraq under the false pretenses of WMDs. So maybe someone else can come in and broker it. someone with no financial interest in that part. Well, everyone's gonna have financial because they export grain, but you know, someone that's not a close ally of the USA or Russia. It's worth a try. I mean, if no one's talking about peace and everyone's just talking about more war, more weapons, they're not even sending food there. Like, oh my gosh. So they're just sending weapons there just so they can get grain out of the region. To hell with everyone else that has decided to stay in their homeland. Wow.
The African Union, League of Arab States. There are many forums around the world that have no direct economic interest one way or the other between Russia and Ukraine who might be able to broker a peace. But there has to be a peace. Otherwise, what are we looking at? People in Ukraine just being killed, Russian soldiers being killed.
And liberals over here just grandstanding and say, well, at least I had like a Ukrainian flag in my Twitter bio. At least I said they need to fight to the last man.
Not a great plan.
Otherwise, what is the point? What is the point? They just fight until the last person standing. Because I don't know if people and armchair war generals know this. There's no way Ukraine can beat Russia unless Russia just retreats.
Sorry, can't do this.
Absolutely.
Russia's got the manpower and the time, obviously, and they've got a point to prove right now. So,
and a devastation on the economies of all those countries. And there are now millions of Ukrainians living in other parts of Europe. And I have to say, generally speaking, Europe has been very welcoming of Ukrainian refugees, and that's good. That's right. Sadly, they're not so welcoming and not so enabling of refugees coming from Yemen or anywhere else. In my book, a refugee needs help and support wherever they come from.
okay, guys, help me out here, because we've watched the video together. As far as I heard, he said more guns equals a prolonged war. Yeah, if you got more bullets to fight, you're gonna keep fighting.
Yep, that's how time works, dummy.
A longer war means more death. Death of Ukrainians and Russians. I understand it so far. He wants peace. Never said, oh, I want more Ukrainians to die. I want more Russians to die. I'm a puppet of Putin. None of that. He wants peace. He wants a third party that has no financial interests in that area to negotiate it, i.e. the UN, which, again, I feel the UN's a bit toothless, but then he said the African League of Nations, or African Union, or the Arab League of Nations. I'm getting it so far. He said Europe has done a fantastic job in welcoming Ukrainian refugees. I agree as well. And then he said that should be extended to refugees of Yemen, Syria, Iraq. I also agree with that. So I need to understand,
what the fuck is going on?
Why is everyone losing their mind about this 2-minute clip from a obviously longer interview? Ah, gosh, I don't know. I just agreed with those points I just listed. So if you can tell me why any of those points I just listed are devil worshipping motifs, like, yeah, tell me down below. With that being said, he's not the leader of the opposition anymore, and he's not even a Labour MP anymore, and it always makes me think, thank God he isn't the Labour leader because of these words by Mr. James O'Brien of LBC.
And if the Labour Party was led by anybody else, it would be 20 points ahead in the polls.
Tell me I did not just see that.
Houston, we have a problem. This poll was taken at a time when everyone in the country definitely knew Boris Johnson was leaving his post as Prime Minister, which meant that they also knew the next Prime Minister of this country would either be a fascist man or a fascist woman. And still, with those options ahead of them, they looked at the boring solicitor who probably still wears armbands to the swimming pool and thought, nah, we don't want to take a risk with that guy. I could honestly laugh about this poll all day, but we don't have that much time left. Instead, I wanted to draw your attention to this 2-minute video from a fuller documentary released by Channel 4 in 2019. This is some real serious stuff. And a lot of the challenges faced in this video not only exist today, but I would say they have got a lot worse.
Even though most of us are really hungry, we have to be careful with our food. At the food place, because we don't have a lot of money, we always go there to get a bit more food. We go there for free. You don't have to pay.
Might I remind you, this Dispatches documentary came out in 2019, and it's so interesting. Channel 4 does do some nice documentaries, and I guess it's to offset the more exploitative arm of Channel 4, you know, where they put on documentaries such as My Big Fat Gypsy Wedding and Benefit Street. So yeah, this is a Dispatches. Well, it's Channel 4 News, isn't it? Dispatches, I think. Yeah, so they put on the documentary, and this happened in 2000. This got released in 2019, when we had the choice between Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn. And thank God people decided to not vote for the guy that made jam in favour of the buffoon who was burning money in front of homeless people when he was at Eton. Thank God the UK went in that direction. The number of people using food banks has skyrocketed since this documentary was released. And it's so interesting that I'm watching this again now when we've just seen Rishi Sunak say
shoved all the funding into deprived urban areas, then that needed to be undone. I started the work of undoing that.
Even though when he said deprived urban areas, that's a dog whistle for poor areas that features a high percentage of black and brown people, but he still said deprived areas, which could include, and it definitely did include, areas where this young child lived, or still lives, should I say. He pulled funding out of those areas to put in rich areas where he knew he shared the values.
What the fuck?
So frustrating.
To get that food, but you do have to pay to go in. We go there till we don't have a lot of money to buy food and drinks. So that place is helping us a lot.
Again, this documentary was released in 2019. At the end of 2019, the UK decided to elect Boris Johnson as the next Prime Minister of this country with an 80-seat majority in the House of Commons.
What the fuck?
That man went on to preside over 180,000 people to die from COVID-19.
I don't think you just heard what I said.
His legacy for absolute carnage and destruction on his own people is unprecedented. It will be unmatched and unparalleled.
It's one of these, and one of those. Given a token with a number on, and once your number is called, then you can go pick some food from like each group. So like there's different groups like bread and yogurt and cake, fruit and frozen stuff.
Now some people might be mistaken in thinking we're under war. Like this is the type of things you would have seen in World War II when you had your ration vouchers and stuff like. What's it? Yeah, your rations booklet. No, this is 2019, the UK at that time, and it still is, the sixth biggest economy on the face of the planet. And we have citizens in this country using food banks while British Gas increases its profits by 5-fold. Nationalise it all. Nationalise everything. The electricity, the gas, the buses, the trains, McDonald's, Tesco's, IKEA. Nationalise it all. It all needs to come into public ownership. I do not care. We cannot live in a country where British Gas is seeing profits increase by 5-fold and people are using food banks to the tune of 2.1 million packages being given out in the last financial year alone. Nationalise it all. Nationalise it all. Nationalise it all.
I think parents do worry about money quite a bit because sometimes we do struggle to buy food a bit, and it's very hard when you don't have very much money. I think I want people with more money to understand what it's like with less money. I want them to understand that it's difficult. People with more money can help people with less money, so because we're all equal and stuff.
Careful there, young lady. You started to sound like you were advocating for socialist principles there at the end, which means that someone could rightfully accuse you of being a Marxist. That's not a very good thing, because that could end up with you being sent to the de-radicalization camp by Rishi Sunak. Now, obviously, that was like a trailer or a short clip for what was going to be a half-an-hour documentary on Channel 4, and they couldn't have done a better job of crystallizing what the poorest in this society are going for. And I bet you, because I never actually watched the full documentary. I've only ever watched this 2-minute clip, but I bet you that they had parents in work. I bet you those parents were still getting in work benefits, and it still wasn't enough, and they still had to go and use a food bank. This is before COVID. This is before this government could use we're losing so much money because of COVID. We've got such a massive debt because of COVID. Yeah, I know who you actually owe your national debt to.
Now, this isn't like household debt. This isn't like running an overdraft. Just how important is it that we pay this off?
That's a really important point. We've been talking like it is like household debt for a very long time. But when you're a homeowner, what you worry about with debt is what's going to happen if you can't pay it. The bailiffs might come round. You might have a repossession, but it's not like that for the government, not least because of who they're borrowing it from. And if you look at that, who do we actually owe this money to? Well, of the money borrowed since the pandemic, actually 92% of it is owed to the Bank of England. Now, that's really ultimately another branch of government. So if you're borrowing from yourself, as you are with government finances, you have a much more patient creditor who's not going to be banging on your door to see.
So what have we learned today? Jeremy Corbyn still winds up a lot of people because, as far as I could see, he was advocating for peace and the decrease in money sent to the military industrial complex, mean people that are the sultans of death don't keep getting paid because of wars around this planet. Also, it's quite interesting that the UK is sending arms to the Ukraine, you know, a smaller country being invaded by a larger imperialist force, but at the same time, they are sending weapons to Saudi Arabia, who is a large imperial force blowing the hell out of Yemen. It just seems like this country has no consistency for anything.
So we don't have the capacity.
Yeah, so along with Jeremy Corbyn advocating for peace, we have Rishi Sunak going full fascist. So it's so lovely to see that in 2019, when we elected a proto-fascist, a Mr. Blobby fascist, if you will, it was definitely opening the door to a hardened fascist, either by design or her own stupid unwillingness to have a backbone. So yeah, we're going to have our next prime minister is going to be a fascist, whether we like it or not. Yeah, and I'm very comfortable with saying that now. Not only a fascist that will send you to a re-education camp if you even say, you know what, the trains don't even run on time in this country. Not only will he do that, but he will relish at pulling money out of deprived areas and sending it to areas that obviously don't need the money because they're already wealthy and rich anyway. And I think there's something else I'm missing. I'm happy to announce that the English FA has finally solved racism because Premier League clubs will no longer be taking a knee before matches. The only thing more stupid than the fact that they are scrapping this policy was their decision to introduce it in the first place. I mean, what was the plan, guys? Did they really think taking the knee for a defined amount of time was going to kick racism out of the world? It just kind of proved what all the conservatives were saying, that this was just a massive virtual signalling exercise by the English FA just to, like, I don't know, get more money, just be in with the cool kids. I just don't, I'm confused. Anyway, speaking of getting more money, let's have a butchers at this dummy from America, as he's actually wetting his pants with excitement that the richest people in the world just keep getting more rich.
Wealth, this according to Oxfam, of the world's 85 richest people is equal to the 3.5 billion poorest people.
It's fantastic.
Please, fuck right off.
And this is a great thing because it inspires everybody, gets the motivation to look up to the 1% and say, I want to become one of those people. I'm going to fight hard to get up to the top. This is fantastic news, and of course I applaud it. What can be wrong with this?
Really?
Even his co-host there saying, come on, dude, don't say this on national TV. This clip has made me so in favour of nationalisation. We should nationalise that guy's head, or what's left of his hairline. The back of his head should be nationalised, and it should be for the people. So that's the video. I would love to read your comments down below. Get involved. I want to read it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you very, very soon. Okay, bye.